All right, Nathan here, Inside Sports. If anyone's actually going to watch live, I apologize for the sideways screen. I'll rotate it afterwards. I'm currently using my phone and the gyroscope broke, so that's what's going on. Um, I, I mean, what a crazy week. Um, week 16 was pretty crazy. It was both good and bad. The good was, I picked some of the big name games. I got most of those correct, such as Seattle beating Dallas. Picked Pittsburgh. Um, I got San Francisco over Jacksonville. So a lot of the big games I got correct. The bad was a lot of the questionable games that I was nervous about, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this could go either way. I ended up picking incorrectly. But that's how it goes. That's how football is. Can't win them all. I felt like I tried to make educated decisions, and if it wasn't completely, let's say, educated, I felt like I had a good feeling for the reasoning behind why I picked what I picked. But in any case, week 16 is done. Let's go on to week 17. I haven't looked at every single one of these lines ahead of time, so I'm actually going to go through this with you guys together, and we will talk this out and work it out, and I'll tell you what I think is going to happen for week 17. Now, week 17 is very interesting. I just want to talk about it really quick. It's different than any of the other weeks in the NFL. It's the final week of the season. A lot of the teams no longer have anything to play for. Even teams that have locked up the playoffs often don't have anything to play for because they want to rest players. So even if they start players in the first quarter or the first half, a lot of times they'll bench them in the second half or the fourth quarter. So that can change a lot of things. So one thing to look out for is a team that you would expect not to beat, a better team, to potentially do that if the better team is going to rest a lot of players. With that said, let's go through the games and talk it out and see what if we can figure out, the best plays for week 17. Let's try to get all 16 games. All right. All right. So first on the board, Cincinnati at Baltimore. So Cincinnati surprised us a little bit. They beat Detroit. Detroit had everything to play for. Cincinnati didn't. Detroit could have potentially been in the playoff contention still. And then Cincinnati was able to beat them. So a lot of people, including myself, got that wrong. Now, again, there's nothing to play for except for division rivalry, grudge match. Marvin Lewis's last game could be very emotional. Baltimore is fighting for a playoff spot, though. They most likely will have the 6th seed, but there's a chance that if they lose, that either the Chargers or the Buffalo Bills could slip in there. So they really need Cincinnati to win this game for them. So with that said, there is a little bit of a spoiler effect here. And Marvin Lewis's last game, there's something to play for. So right now we've got the over-under at 40.5, and Baltimore's favored by 9.5 points. Now on paper, I would agree. I think Baltimore is the better team. They have everything to play for. They got to get to the playoffs. They're solid at defense, solid on offense. Again, this is division rivalry. Division rivalry, sometimes you got to throw it all out the window. They hate each other. If the players got up to play last week when I felt like there was nothing to play for Cincinnati, there's no reason why they couldn't get up and play again. Yes, granted, they're on the road this time. I'm sure Baltimore's going to play better at home. But for the division rivalry, giving up 9.5 points, I think we're going to take Cincinnati on the road plus 9.5. They would love to play spoiler here, knock out a division rival, and let someone else come in the playoffs. So we're taking Cincinnati plus 9.5. Granted, do I think Baltimore is the better team? Do I think they can win? Absolutely. But because this is week 17, anything can happen. We're taking Cincinnati. And the over-under is 40.5. Normally, I would err probably on the under for this, but because I think this is such a meaningful game, we're going to go over 40.5. All right, next game we got Green Bay at Detroit. So Green Bay, I've watched a few of their games with Brett Hundley. They've looked atrocious on offense. I mean, he's a smart quarterback. He's able to run the ball, but he's kind of like, he's similar to Colin Kaepernick. Not super accurate, pretty fast, got good legs. They just have not been able to move the ball. They had some injuries last week. Who was it? It's slipping my mind right now. But their top receiver, he left the game. Hunley was already having trouble finding players. Couldn't find Randall Cobb, which would have been a nice bomb. I think I just cannot, in good faith, back the Green Bay Packers. Not that I don't think that they're not going to try. I mean, 7 points, which currently what the spread is, 7 points is a lot of points, but they've just looked atrocious in offense. Detroit, if they think they're going to sit Matthew Stafford, it's a different story. But if Matthew Stafford's playing, he's much better quarterback than Brett Hundley. He's been playing for a number of years. Very solid. We're going with Detroit, -7. Over-unders 43. Like I said, the Green Bay offense has been atrocious. We're going to go with the under. Unless there's a lot of turnovers, I just have a hard time seeing this game over 43. Now, of course, sure, could there always be a blowout? Absolutely. But we're going under 43. All right, next game on the board, we got Buffalo at Miami. Again, another division rivalry. The NFL loves to stack these division rivalries in the last weekend of the season because they feel that it just adds much more emotion, impact, that much more to the playoff picture at the end of the day. So this line kind of scares me. It's -3 with even money for Buffalo on the road. Often I find that the even money picks don't always hit. But again, Buffalo is everything to play for. Miami doesn't. Not saying that Miami's not going to come to play. I think they will. But Buffalo has been playing reasonably well of late. Miami has been playing better at home, but they've still been very inconsistent. I think Buffalo has to bring everything they have to the table. They got to win this game. So I'm going to take Buffalo -3. I'm not crazy about this pick, but I'm going to stick with them because I think they just have the most to play for. And 3 is a lot different than trying to win by 9.5 like Baltimore is. So we got Buffalo -3, even money. And over-under is 42.5. I mean, the game most likely will probably end like right at 42 points. I'm going to err slightly on the over. It could go to overtime. So we go over 42.5. Next game, Carolina at Atlanta. Okay, this is the big game in the NFC. So just like I said, Baltimore, Buffalo, and I guess the Los Angeles Chargers. It always sounds weird to me. I have the most to play for in the AFC. Atlanta is trying to lock up that last spot and hold off Seattle in the NFC. So Atlanta needs to win this to get to the playoffs. If they lose and Seattle wins, Seattle gets to the playoffs. So Carolina, this is what we have to figure out, is depending on the seeding. If Carolina were to lose this game on purpose, then they could potentially not have to face Seattle, depending on what seed they end up. I mean, it's total like a mind mind blown moment here. But I'm not saying that someone would purposely try to throw a game for that reason. But if you knew you were going to play a potentially better Seattle team by beating Atlanta, you could potentially argue you should lose to Atlanta so you play a lesser team. Just out of curiosity, let me see if I can find the playoff seeding here. Since we're going to go deep here, so we got to just gotta see what's going on here. Okay, so currently, the Falcons and the Seahawks tied at 9-6, and it looks like those are the teams that they have to worry about here. Saints and Panthers. It looks like the Saints have the tiebreaker over the Panthers, but they have identical records of 11-4, and the Rams also have a record of 11-4, but I don't believe the Rams can get a bye. I'm not sure if the Saints or Panthers can if Minnesota loses. What does it say? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think there's a chance that yeah, I think there's a chance someone could get a bye. Any case, long story short, it's too complicated and convoluted to figure out. With 3, 11, and 4 teams, my guess is that whoever is playing is going to want to win because they want to play a playoff game at home. And that's the bottom line. If whoever's going to win this game will most likely be able to host a playoff game in the division or in the wild card round. So forget all that. It was a long tangent to see if you really want to go deep and just throw the game. We're not going to go there. So I think Carolina, they're going to come to play. They're going to try to beat Atlanta. Line is now Atlanta favored by 3.5 points. I'm going to go with Carolina plus 3.5. Like, they would love to knock off a division rival if we can. Yes, that might mean Seattle gets in, but if they beat Atlanta, it increases their chance of winning the division, getting a home game. I mean, it just makes things so much better. So, they've got everything to play for. Not that Atlanta doesn't have everything to play for, but they still have a lot to play for here. So we're going Carolina plus 3.5 on the road. Over unders 45.5. I mean, that's a pretty fair line for what we're looking at here. I mean, this is for all the marbles. So it's got to be back and forth probably. So we're going to go over 45.5. Probably just go back and forth. It could be a shootout. See what happens here. All right, next. We've got New Orleans -7 at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay, I feel bad for them because they seem to lose every game by like 7 points or less in heartbreaking fashion. And I think last year, Jameis Winston was like slamming his helmet and like throwing fits on the sideline. So, I feel for them. I think they're going to still come out and play hard. New Orleans, like I said, though, they have everything to play for, just like Carolina does. And if New Orleans wins and Carolina wins, I think New Orleans holds the tiebreaker. Thus, they would get the home game. So we're going to go with New Orleans, -7 on the road. I know it's a lot, but they're just a great team. They've got an excellent running game. Drew Brees is excellent. Their defense is playing reasonably well. They're just a solid team. 7 points on the road is quite a bit, but I just think Tampa Bay isn't as good from top to bottom. Not saying that Tampa Bay couldn't win this game. They absolutely could win this game. But, based on the fact that New Orleans still has a lot to play for, we're going to stick with New Orleans, -7. Over-unders 50.5 points. Like all these division games can go high scoring. I'm going to go over as well. I was a little reluctant at first because last week I believe they hit the under New Orleans versus Atlanta, and that over under was like 52.5. But it's going to be in Tampa. It's going to be warm. Muscles will be nice and loose. New Orleans has one of the best offenses in the league. Tampa Bay plays pretty well at home. They've got a decent passing offense. Defense is not very good, but plays better at home. But I still think this can easily go over 50.5 points. So we're going to take the over. All right, next thing we got Jacksonville, Tennessee. Oh, wow, what a game. So Jacksonville lost a lot last week. So by losing to the Niners, they put themselves in a bad spot. I think they can still potentially, can they? No, they can't even get a bye because they're too far back. So actually, Jacksonville has basically nothing to play for here. If they win this game, then they will probably end up playing against, I guess the Tennessee Titans is the other team that I forgot to mention. So if they win this game, they're probably going to end up playing, the Ravens, Titans. Oh, excuse me. I guess the Ravens are most likely locked, and I think they're most likely locked. No, they're not locked. Okay, so I didn't misspeak. They're not technically locked, but they have a good shot at the playoffs. It's the Titans that are also in the battle with the Chargers and the Bills. So, if the Titans win this, they're basically in the playoffs. if they lose, they're done. They're almost guaranteed not to be in the playoffs. So the Titans have to win this game. It's like a must win. But Jacksonville is such a good team. So Jacksonville, this is such an interesting game. So Jacksonville has nothing to play for other than just pride and keeping momentum in the playoffs, which I think is actually a big thing because there's so many years Peyton Manning, the Colts would have like the most dominant team, and they literally have nothing to play for the last 3 games of the season, and they would just rest for like 3 games, and then they'd have like a first round bye, and then they'd come to the playoffs, haven't played a meaningful game in a month, and they would promptly lose like every time in the divisional round. So it happened so many times. And then there was this game, I think it was back in 2007 when Tom Brady scored, threw 50 touchdowns to Randy Moss. Randy Moss had like 25 touchdowns or something. And they were playing against the Giants. And both teams were locked. I think Patriots had first round bye in the playoffs, home field advantage with the playoffs. And the Giants were locked in like the 6th seed. So like both were completely locked. The game literally meant nothing. But it was the most exciting, meaningless game I had ever seen in my life. They both played their hearts out, and it was probably the most exciting game of the year. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's the season finale, Week 17, New England Patriots versus the New York Giants. Amazing game, completely meaningless, but they played their hearts out, and the Patriots ended up winning to preserve their undefeated record going into the playoffs. And then ultimately, the Giants got confidence knowing that they could hang with the best team in the league. Went on a run, won 3 in a row, got to the Super Bowl, faced the Patriots again, and then beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl to ruin the perfect 19-0 undefeated perfect season. So since that time, I would say 2007, I think teams have really reevaluated the momentum aspect and how important it is to keep momentum going to the playoffs. So with that said, and the fact that Tennessee has lost 3 in a row and is really slumping, not that they're not trying well, but I think you got to go with Jacksonville. I mean, they're just a great team. They're getting plus 3.5 on the road. Yes, Tennessee does play better at home, but the Jacksonville Jaguars you saw against the Niners last week, I do not think those are the Jacksonville Jaguars that have been playing the majority of the season. I mean, the Niners are hot right now. Tennessee, if you look at most of their wins throughout the season, they've been eking out wins by 3 points, 4 points. Variance is coming back to bite them. So they're just coming back to earth. That's all it is. It's nothing special, nothing personal. So Jacksonville, plus 3.5 on the road at Tennessee. They've got a dominant defense. Defense comes back, shuts Tennessee down. Under a 42. That's where I'm going with. Next game, New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Okay, they're playing. Okay, this game's at 1 p.m. That's interesting. So they had all those other games that were super meaningful. Those were at 4:25. For some reason, now we're going to 1 p.m. games and then 4:25 games again. Okay, I'm really confused, like the ordering of how they ordered these games, but whatever. They must have switched things the last minute. All right, so the New York Jets are playing the Patriots. The Patriots still are vying for a first, not a bye, but for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. If the Patriots lose and the Steelers win, and the Steelers are playing the Browns, then the Steelers will get home field throughout the playoffs. And that's a big deal because if the Patriots and the Steelers both win their first games, they're going to meet each other in the AFC Championship game, but now they'll have to play in Pittsburgh again. And New England does not play as well on the road as they do at home, and vice versa. Pittsburgh usually doesn't play as well on the road as they do at home. So this is still an incredibly important game for New England. They've got to win it. Again, the Jets aren't going to lay down in the last week, but if there's a game they're going to win, it's going to be this one. So we got New England minus 15.5 at home. Over under is 45. We're going to go New England minus 15.5. And we're taking the over because what else can they do? They got to just blow them out. They got to win and win big, secure that bye. I mean, they already had the bye, but secure the home field throughout the playoffs, and then enjoy that week off, and then play a home game against hopefully a soft opponent. So we'll see what happens. But we're taking the Patriots. All right, we've got Houston at Indianapolis. Okay, Houston has looked absolutely horrid the last few weeks. Just so horrid. Indianapolis has not looked much better, but the game's been reasonably close. I guess the Houston quarterback Tom Savage is out, so he's not going to be starting. So I don't know who's going to be starting in this game. Whoever it is, if they're no better than Tom Savage, then I can't take Houston. You've got to take the home team, Indianapolis with Jacoby Brissett, who's been starting all season long in place of Andrew Luck. I mean, you just got to take Indianapolis. Now, if the quarterback that's starting for Tom Savage is better, we got to find out who it is. So, I know, I'm sorry this is taking a little bit longer. I didn't do my research here because it's early. It's Tuesday. But you can't make these decisions. I mean, this is so important. Like, how can you bet on a game, or even not even bet, but if you how can you predict a game properly if you don't even know who's going to be playing? Like, it's just okay. Is there like a depth chart? Okay. T.J. Yates. That does not inspire confidence. 45% completion percentage, 55% for his career. I want to say he might have won a playoff game by starting in place of an injured player at one point, but his career is 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 55%, 13 fumbles, a quarterback rating of 71.8. Not so impressive. Let's see if we can find, just out of curiosity now, I gotta look at the Colts here. Thanks for bearing with me if we're going on the wild tangent. Okay. Jacoby Brissett, by contrast, has a career completion percentage of 59.1%, rating of 81.8, 12 TDs to 7 interceptions, 11 fumbles, 6.78 average. And TJ Yates had a 6.4 average. So, by all conceivable measures, it seems like Jacoby Brissett is a slightly better quarterback than TJ Yates. Not saying he's a lot better, but you've got the better quarterback playing at home against a team that's been damaged and broken for the past few weeks. Now, I mean, they still got DeAndre Hopkins. They still got, playmakers on Houston. Okay, I'm not saying that they couldn't win this game. They can. But I think we've got to take Indianapolis. It just... Unless Tom Savage is that bad. Is he really that bad? All right, we're going really deep. Sorry, guys. I got to look at Tom Savage's numbers. Quarterback rating of 72.5. Completion percentage 57.5%. 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 11 fumbles. It's almost identical to TJ Yates. That's crazy. So basically, replacing TJ Yates with Tom Savage is not going to make much difference. If anything, TJ Yates might be slightly better. Maybe he plays better. I don't know. We're going to reluctantly go with the Colts. Minus 3.5. I know it was a long tangent for nothing, but minus 3.5. Over-under is 41. We're taking the under. I mean, Houston's been struggling to score the last few weeks. Indianapolis struggles to score every week. Why should that change? Can it change? Of course. It's football. Nothing's guaranteed. Anything can happen at any time. But you just got to play the statistics. In the long run, if you played this game 100 times, probably 65 times this would go under 41. So that's why we're going with it. But not every time, right? If we had infinite universes, we could find out. But there's no way to find out. Or is there? Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Okay, I kind of foreshadowed this a little bit just a few minutes ago. Cleveland 0-15 has not won a game. I'm sure they would love to win a game. The problem is I just don't think they have the talent. Pittsburgh looked amazing against Houston. They blew them out by like 25 points or something. I mean, now they're playing at home, and they actually have something to play for, which is potentially home field advantage for the playoffs if the Patriots stumble. So again, I think the Pittsburgh's got to come out and they got to play hard. Minus 13 is a lot of points. Cleveland's defense is actually pretty solid. It's a division rival. I mean, I'd love to take Cleveland here and see a surprise, but because they're playing these games at the exact same times, and the league did this on purpose, they don't want them to bench their starters if they know the other team is, already clinched, already won their game earlier in the day. So, pretty smart for the league, actually. So that way, it tries to keep the games competitive throughout. So if they're going to be competitive, if the starters are playing the whole time, we're going Pittsburgh minus 3, easy. Over under 39.5. It's pretty close because it depends on how much Cleveland can score. We're just going to go over just because Pittsburgh could score 40 by themselves. I'm not super confident about this, but we're going with the over. All right, next we got Washington and the New York Giants. Washington, if you guys don't already know, they're basically the bane of my existence. Going back probably at least 10 years, whatever I pick, whether it's for Washington or against Washington, almost always it's the opposite will happen. I don't know what it is about the team. Like, they're just good enough. They've hovered on 500 like every year. Like, they're just good enough to beat good teams sometimes, and they're just bad enough to always lose to like these teams they should beat. So why should that change, right? So with that said, Washington minus 3.5 at the New York Giants, right? It should be pretty obvious that Washington should cover this because they played, pretty well last week. They beat the Broncos like pretty handily. The Giants got shut out by the Arizona Cardinals, not like they're world beaters or anything. So you go, oh, clearly they should win. Well, that's what you would think, right? So with that logic, I would pick Washington minus 3.5, but it's even money. Again, that's scary. Some places have it minus 3. If you can get minus 3, it's less scary, but then the odds are minus 120. Any case, we're going to take Washington minus 3.5, but you watch, because I took Washington, the Giants are going to win, or at least cover the spread. Washington minus 3.5, over under is 38. We're going to go under 38. I mean, that's what they want you to pick, right? Because low scoring game last week, Washington, Denver, and Giants got shut out. So shouldn't it be the opposite than over? So watch, I'm going to get both these wrong. It's going to be the Giants is going to go over, but we're going to do what the logical thing is by taking Washington minus 3.5 and the under of 38. All right, next we got Chicago and Minnesota. Minnesota might have the best defense in the league this season. I mean, they're excellent. They shut out the Packers last week in a very cold game. Now they're indoors in their new stadium. They might get to host their own Super Bowl, which would be an incredible first time it would ever happen. Chicago, solid defense, no offense. That's been basically their MO the entire season. Minnesota, phenomenal defense, solid offense. Sometimes if they need to put points on the board, they put the points on the board. If they don't, they don't. But it seems everything comes up. Sunny side up for them. You drop your toast with jam. It's always going to land on the jam side up. So where's the Browns, the Bears? It's always going to land jam side down. So, with that said, I don't think Minnesota has anything to play for. It's minus 11.5. If going back to my standings here, let's see here. They're 12-3, and I think they beat the Rams. They have the tiebreaker over the Rams. So, oh no, the Saints might be able to leapfrog them. Okay, maybe they do have something before. Okay, I thought for a second they didn't have anything to play for. Okay, since They're playing at 1 p.m. And Tampa Bay and Carolina are playing at 4:25. Okay, so they do have something to play for. All right, with that said, we're taking Minnesota minus 11.5. Over under is 39.5. We're going to go with the under. Both teams have good defenses. Maybe Minnesota could win this one again, like 27-7, something like that. Relatively low scoring, solid defense. Even 27-10 would be fine at 39.5. So that's where we're going. We're going Minnesota minus 11.5 in the under 39.5. Okay, so I hope you don't mind this kind of long-winded exploration, but this is kind of what I like to do. Like if I'm trying to figure out, which team to pick, it's gonna be very hard to, like if you're just picking in the dark, like, oh, this team won last week, so they should win this week. You might as well just flip a coin. You kind of have to like look up not just the game and the opponents, but the story behind each game. The meaning behind it. That can add an extra layer, an extra dimension of, what's going on. Now, of course, it's football. Anything can happen. I can tell the greatest story in the world about why a team should win X, Y, and Z, and they won't win. But because this game is played before the other games, that could potentially impact. They get locked up that bye they so very much want. Whereas if they lose, it's possible they may not have the tiebreaker over the Saints. I don't remember exactly, but the Saints are the Panthers. Okay, we're almost done here. Thanks for bearing with me. We've got a few more games. We got Dallas at Philadelphia. So Dallas suffered a heartbreaking defeat against Seattle. Like, I think just too many turnovers. Seattle didn't play great, but they played good enough to win on the road. They're so mentally tough, that team. And I knew that they were going to come to play. Like, that game against the Rams was not the real Seattle Seahawks. It was a little anomaly. The Eagles have nothing to play for other than trying to get their offense in order. They've already clinched first round bye, home field advantage at the playoffs. This is basically start. So what the Eagles are going to do, they're going to play their starters for the first half. And whether they get up big or get down big, they're most likely just going to rest their starters in the second half, unless their offense is so pathetic that they need to click a little bit more and then maybe they'll play in the third quarter. But I can almost guarantee you, regardless of what happens, they're going to rest the starters in the fourth quarter, barring like a super close game where they really just, let's just finish it. And they want to get that momentum into the playoffs, which is important because Nick Foles needs the reps. So I'm not saying that they won't, but at the same time, they need to protect Nick Foles, and I can see not having him play a full game here. Maybe first half, 3 quarters, just depending on, how far along, the team gets blown out one way or the other. I'm thinking at least a half, maybe 3 quarters. Dallas, same thing. Like maybe they shut Dez Bryant down for the season. Maybe they shut down Ezekiel Elliott because Ezekiel Elliott's probably going to be the cornerstone for the rest of the season. I mean, there's nothing to play for other than pride. So like I said, if they get down big, you can just bench them at the half or 3 quarters through. So it's early in the week. This is Tuesday night. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen the next 4 or 5 days in the news and who's going to sit and whatever. So these are all very early predictions. But currently Dallas is favored by 2.5 points. I think that is because they're assuming Philadelphia is going to rest a bunch of starters. The game has no meaning for them. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Or Dallas is such a public team, they usually get an extra point or two. So normally I would say take because I would expect it to be reversed. I would expect the Dallas to be plus 2.5 or plus 3 underdogs on the road against Philadelphia. And then I would say, well, because this is week 17, take the road team because Philadelphia doesn't have anything to play for. They don't want to get injured. They're going to rest a bunch of starters. Makes sense, right? Well, Dallas could rest some of their players too. But Philadelphia, their offense needs to click. And if they don't get their offense to click, they're not going very far in the playoffs. If you saw the Raiders last year, once Derek Carr went down, I just knew it. I'm like, they're going to lose in the first round. And they did. So And they missed out on a bye, which is really, they probably would have won in the last week and secured that bye. So we're gonna go with Philadelphia plus 2.5 at home. Why not? But mostly because they need to get momentum on offense. So I think Philadelphia's going to play hard for at least a half, maybe 3 quarters. Hopefully they can get a big on Dallas by then, and then just sit back after that. So you know again, this is very early knowledge. I'm not exactly sure why Dallas is favored by so much, other than their public team. But we're going to go again plus 2.5 with Philadelphia, and because I think they need to get the offense to click, they're going to try to score points as much as they can in the first half, run up that score. So I'm actually going to go over 41. If just because teams don't have anything to play for doesn't mean they don't have anything to play for, if you know what I mean. Like, they really do. But if they believe in the Peyton Manning philosophy of resting for 3 weeks and then losing in the divisional playoffs, then I'm completely wrong. Don't listen to me. Maybe you get more information later in the week, then disregard everything I'm saying. But if you're going by the 2007 New England Patriots, New York Giants philosophy of you play hard even if it doesn't matter because you got to have momentum going to the playoffs because that's what's going to carry you, then we're going with Philadelphia. I mean, they're a great team, got good defense, great offense. Nick Foles needs to click with his players. We got to take the home team. All right, now we got Oakland at the LA Chargers. Okay, wow, 36 minutes. Okay, this is an epic video. If anyone's actually watching this long, thank you for sticking with me. I know it's long-winded. I know I'm ranting a little bit, but I'm just trying to verbally explain the logic behind what I'm going with. And a lot of these lines I'm seeing for myself. So, all right, Oakland. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. Heartbreaking loss against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. I think they were within field goal range, scoring position. Just like against Dallas, they fumbled at the last second to lose. Fumble, return, last play, touchdown, mixed extra point, tied the point spread. I mean, just craziness. But Chargers have everything to play for. Oakland has nothing to play for other than plain spoiler. Will they play spoiler? Absolutely. But after such a heartbreaking loss, Derek Carr, I don't know what's going on, but he has not been right this year. I don't know if it's in his head. I don't know if it's the injuries. I don't know if he's just regressing. I don't know if his offensive line isn't playing for him because, he was against the kneeling thing early in the season. I don't know what is going on, but the Raiders this year are not as good as Raiders last year, and especially Derek Carr. So with that said, the Chargers can still sneak in the playoffs. It's -7.5. I'm hoping people take the points on the Raiders side and it goes down to 7 later in the week, but you got to take the Chargers -7.5. They have literally everything to play for. If they're gonna win, they're gonna try to win big. I mean, yes, 7.5 points is unfortunate because it means it's more than one scorer. But Oakland has been playing so carelessly and so just poorly the last few weeks. It's just hard to see that changing. And the over-under is 43. I'd like to see the Raiders want to go back and forth with the Chargers and score a bunch of points, but I just don't. They're just not able to. And the Chargers defense is actually pretty solid. So I'm going to kind of reluctantly go under on the 43. Again, not saying it can't go over, but they just haven't shown any consistency in offense. So going to LA Chargers, -7.5, under 43. All right, Arizona Cardinals against the Seattle Seahawks. Again, now we got the Seahawks with everything to play for. The Cardinals can play spoiler. They're on the road. Seattle plays really well at home. Division rival. Normally, division rivals play teams tough, but Arizona, they've been inconsistent at best. Sure, they blew out a Giants team, but that Giants team might be the worst or second worst team in the league. I mean, they're really bad. Eli Manning has not been impressive. They don't have any weapons on offense. I mean, it wouldn't take much to beat that team. Seattle, they're a great team. They're even better at home. I mean, again, they played an excellent LA Rams team. A bunch of things just went wrong for them. Minus 8.5 sounds like a lot, but I think Seattle Seahawks, again, they have everything to play for. We're going to go over minus 8.5. Over under is 38.5. We're just going to go over. I mean, they have good defenses, but I think Seattle, wants to have momentum going to the playoffs if they can get in. They're going to try to score a bunch of points. Arizona's going to try to keep with them. It's going to be tough on the road because it's hard to play in Seattle. The 12th man is real. So this might go under. Realistically, it probably should go under, but I'm taking the over because I just think Seattle's going to try to score a bunch of points in bunches to sometimes one of the tiebreakers is like point differential. I don't know if that's going to matter this year, but it has come up before. So it never hurts to score extra points. All right, we got Kansas City at the Denver Broncos. Kansas City's already clinched. So Jacksonville's at the 3 seed. Kansas City's the 4 seed. Nothing's going to change that. So winning or losing this game won't do anything for Kansas City. So it's literally a meaningless game for them. Whereas the Jacksonville Jaguars, like I said, if they lose to the Titans, they can actually get the Titans to come to the playoffs. Kansas City, if they lose to Denver, it's not going to help anything. So this is one of those games where Denver might actually win. And what's interesting is Denver is actually favored by 3.5 points. So this is a game that they're probably going to rest their starters at the half for Kansas City. Alex Smith will probably play a half. Maybe they can play 3 quarters, but most likely just the first half. So even if they got a lead by a touchdown or two, the second half it's all going to be second string. Denver could potentially just come back and win the game. So Denver's minus 3.5. Might get down to minus 3 later in the week, so you might want to wait. But we're going to take the Denver Broncos minus 3.5. I know it sounds crazy. Over under is 38. We're going to go the under. Again, the starters are probably not going to play more than a half. I don't see them scoring too many points. After that, Kansas City might go scoreless the second half. So under 38, minus 3.5 Denver. So I like this game a lot for both Denver and minus 38. If you can get Denver minus 3, I really like this game. All right, now we've got the game of the week. My favorite game. Final game on the board for all you bearing with me. San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams. San Francisco's been the hottest team in the league. Won their last 4 games in increasingly impressive fashion each week. Each first was like, oh, they beat like the Bears or something. Like, so what? Everyone beats the Bears. And then they were like, oh, you beat, who did they beat? They're like, who was it? I don't remember. Some other team. Like, beat some other team. That's a little more impressive, but it's still that, random team. It's like, oh, then you beat the Titans. And it's like, okay, well, the Titans, they'll probably make the playoffs. They might not. But, they've been a little inconsistent. More impressive, but, I'm still not sold. And then they're like, then they beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars are going to the playoffs. They probably have the best defense in the league. And not only did they beat the Jaguars, they scored 44 points on the Jaguars. I mean, who does that? Jimmy Garoppolo does that. So, the LA Rams are in a weird spot. I think they're stuck in the 3 seed. I don't think they can leapfrog. Well, I think they can do no better than the 3 seed, I don't think they can leapfrog the Eagles or the Vikings because I believe they lost to both those teams. So they're stuck in the 3, but they could potentially go down to the 4, and flip-flop whether they're the Saints or the Panthers. So it could be in the 3 or the 4, meaning they could play either the Seahawks, the Panthers, or the Saints, depending on, how it plays out. So I don't know who they want to play of all those. I mean, they just beat the Seahawks, but, these are all tough games. So in any case, Niners have been hot. Rams really don't have that much to play for. We're sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo. We're sticking with the 49ers. They're going to win this game. San Francisco, +4 on the road. Over-under is 45.5. They scored 44 last week. Score 54 this week. Let's do it. Go into the next season with lots of momentum. and win the Super Bowl next year. For me and all the rest of the 49ers faithful. All right, so that's all I got for you. I know it was long-winded. Thanks for bearing with me, longer than I expected, but I haven't looked at any of these picks. I'm literally going through and I'm trying to explain the reasoning and what I have, logic behind why I'm picking the teams that I'm picking. All right, that's all I got for you right now. Good luck, and we'll see how things play out. Talk to you guys later. Bye.